On April 6, 1917, the United States entered World War I. In an effort to enforce an effective draft as soon as possible, Congress passed the Selective Service Act just 6 weeks later. The law required the draft of all men aged 21 through 30.
Yay, it's my 21st birthday! Congratulations. Join us in the trenches. Come.
In total, the U.S. drafted 2.8 million young men to fight overseas over the course of the war, which ended a year later in 1918. At that time, Charles Schenck, a socialist, was convicted of violating the Espionage Act of 1917, which prevented those who weren't drafted from refusing to fight in the war, for distributing pamphlets encouraging people to resist the draft.
The military works for the bourgeoisie. Dodge the draft.
He appealed to the Supreme Court on the basis that his actions were protected by the First Amendment, as he was merely exercising his right to free speech. The court had to be responsive to the situation at hand, taking into account that the nation was currently in a state of war. Any obstruction to the draft posed a great danger to its domestic tranquility. In a unanimous decision, the justices established that resistance towards the draft posed a danger to the stability of the country in a time of war. Freedom of speech granted by the First Amendment of the Constitution did not protect such acts. Schenck indeed violated the Espionage Act of 1917 by going against his country in a time of
Your violation under the Espionage Act is not protected under the First Amendment. It is considered a clear and present danger and is comparable to shouting fire in a crowded theater.
Please reconsider.
No.
This wasn't always about the First Amendment. Schenck was trying to convince men to resist the draft because it violated the 13th Amendment, which prohibited involuntary solitude. But when Schenck was convicted, the question at hand was whether his conviction violated his First Amendment right to free speech. The case established the significance of the Espionage Act of 1917, as well as exceptions to the First Amendment freedom of speech, pronouncing that the civil liberty is not absolute. This court case's decision was upheld in the case Debs v. United States, when Eugene Debs was convicted under the Espionage Act for giving a speech that encouraged draft dodging.